Okay, it's been a long time that I have made a video up in the channel. Just been busy with other things, but in this case, I made recently, like a couple of days ago, I made a video for my Spanish channel talking about DLSS and why I feel it's like dumb not to use it, in the sense of I can see an image quality difference between native resolution and DLSS enough to justify not using it, because a lot of people are always saying in my videos, oh no, I don't like DLSS, it looks fuzzy, it looks as ghosty, it looks this, it looks that, and I'm like, I can see that. I honestly can see it in the latest version using a 4K 240Hz monitor OLED. So if I cannot see in one of the best monitors possible, how is that everyone else seems to be seeing all these artifacts and things? So I made a video and I'm still showing, and I demonstrating that there is absolutely no difference or nothing to gain from gaming at native resolution, because I was saying that native resolution is dead and that is overvalued, okay? But still, people were like, no, I can see it, it's ghosty, it's fuzzy, I don't like it, I'm not gonna use it. So I started thinking, okay, let's say these people can actually see the difference. There is actually a big difference or enough difference between native and DLSS for them not to use it, okay? Maybe it's me because I use glasses and I can see a thing. Well, that's the conclusion that I see very well, but you know what I mean. So then I started thinking, okay, let's say this is true, okay? What is the sacrifice you have to make in terms of performance and quality in order to play at native against a person that is using DLSS? And what I mean by that is, so if you are, you want to play a 60 FPS, a certain game, and you don't want to use any DLSS FSR or anything like that, then you have to, start setting the game in a way until you achieve those 60 FPS. Okay, let's say your monitor is 1440p and you had a 3060. So you start the game and the game is maybe running at 40 FPS, and you start, adjusting the settings until you get those 60 FPS you want. Okay, that's what I wanted to check. So you playing on native have to set certain settings in order to be able to play the game at 60 FPS. So by activating DLSS, what can I get above the settings needed on native? And if the trade-off worth it, I mean, if I can play a game like in a higher quality of image, like setting, maybe you have to play on low and I can play on high just because I'm using DLSS, always trying to maintain the same 60 FPS and same end resolution 1440p. Is it worth it to play at a lower resolution but a native resolution that play at medium but lower quality, is it worth it to play at a lower quality but native resolution, or is it better to play at a higher quality but DLSS resolution? That's what I wanted to find out, okay? And yes, I did some tests and I am bringing them here, but before that, most of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed to it, and I am not sure why, because a lot of people watch the channel, to be honest. I'm surprised about how good the videos in general are doing, even when I'm not uploading anything. But not enough people are subscribing, and it will help me a lot if you subscribe, because that way is the only way I can be noticed by companies and help me build this channel. I hope to have a review of the 5090 when it comes out, because I am not anyone important enough for NVIDIA to send me one card. NVIDIA, if you're watching me, please, I have 2 channels, please help me, or AMD or even Intel. But yeah, none of them care about my channel. So if you people subscribe to it, you can help me a lot, because at the end of the day, all they care. Okay, so the first game I'm going to be testing is Silent Hill 2 Remake, and in this case you can see that on the left we're always going to have the native version of the game, or closest to native in terms of resolution, trying to not apply any sort of reconstruction or anything like that. And on the right side we're always going to have like the DLSS version that I have set up. So the rules have been explained before, so you know what to get. So in this game, both are low settings, okay? One is using DLSS balance to get to 60, while the other one is completely native. So on the native one, we are around 48 FPS, while on balance, we are completely on 60 FPS. But that's essentially the biggest difference in terms of image. We obviously have lower latency on the DLSS version because we have more frame rate. So by having more frame rate, we are also lowering the latency. So that's another advantage of using DLSS. But in terms of image quality, there is no reason not to be using DLSS. I know some people keep saying, oh, DLSS doesn't look as good. To me, it looks bad, or it looks like fuzzy or whatever. I can see that, honestly, to go. I have a 4K OLED monitor, 240 Hz, and I can assure you there is absolutely no discerning difference where you can say it looks bad, it looks fuzzy, is creating all these ghosting images. And even if there was maybe a little, which I can see, I don't think it justifies losing that much performance just because you want to use native. If we go to split the screen just to show you, there is no image quality difference whatsoever. I am not going to argue that DLSS looks better in this case just because it's very hard to prove that in this particular game, okay? But we are going to see other examples. In any case, starting with this game, you can see that the advantage is clearly for DLSS in terms of what it gives you. It gives you an image that looks exactly the same as the native one, but with the advantage of having now 60 FPS and lower latency. Okay, so here we have another Unreal 5 game, and weirdly enough, we're starting with the same sort of FPS. We're at 1440p on the native side and on 4040p DLSS 66% on the right side. As you can see, we have 47, 48 FPS native and 60 FPS with DLSS. But here, I will say that the difference is bigger because the other part of the story is that on the right side, we are on medium settings, and on native, we are on low settings. So not only we got more FPS, but we also were able to improve the image of the game, improve the settings, which is giving me a lot more than just image quality. So as you can see here, I don't see any difference in image quality, but if you can see what the difference makes to go from low to medium, you can see here that we have more vegetation on the medium side, we have a different or a better lighting system, we have more items scattered around like rocks and things like that, but you can also see that the weapon that our protagonist has more like particles effects going on it, making it more interesting to look at, more a beautiful one, and you can see a lot more vegetation. If we go here to split screen, so we can see the difference better. So here we have this game running at DLSS 66% at 60 FPS with around 57 milliseconds of latency. And then when we go to the native one, so we have a different sort of we have a completely different lighting system. We have a lot less vegetation, a shadow that is different. Look at our protagonist, the shadow. Okay, we have so you see how much of a difference does it make to go just from low to medium. Okay, but it's not the fact that we are going to low to medium, it's that by using DLSS balance, we are getting those benefits of going to medium, but also getting the benefit of more FPS going here. And no, I don't think we're losing anything when it comes to detail or fuzzing. Look at this. Here you can see how different it is in terms of and I don't think there is absolutely any visual difference that we can discern here to justify not using DLSS with all the benefits we are getting from using it. So if you are one of those that says they prefer native, that's fine, you are on your right, but I find it that a very dumb decision considering the improvement we can get by using DLSS. Okay, so this is another game I'm be testing, which is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And one of the interesting thing about this game is that, as you can see, we are getting 60 FPS on both completely native and on the DLSS balance side of it. But however, there is a there is a little bit of a difference here in the sense that the DLSS balance, because of using DLSS, I was able to activate ray tracing for shadows and ray tracing for ambient occlusion. So we have to ray trace effect that we cannot activate on the native one, otherwise the native one will go under 60 FPS. And remember, the setting of the game is very high, so there is nowhere to go from here other than activating ray tracing. Okay, and another thing is, in this particular case of Ratchet and Clank, it's not using any sort of anti-alias. I'm using pure native resolution, and this shows a couple of things. To begin with, as a native resolution, you can see it's very pixelated because it's needing the TAA to probably sort out some of the effects and avoid this sort of dithering pattern that it creates. However, you can see that the DLSS part is a lot more refined, it's smoother, and it looks kind of better. But that's not the only difference, because the important part here is not just if it looks a little bit better in terms of image quality or not, is the sacrifices or the benefits we have when we activate DLSS. So if we go here, look at all the shadows that we are losing on the native part of the game by not activating DLSS to keep the 60 FPS. Okay, so look at all the shadows that start coming, okay, in the background. Look at all the shadows that we have there. Okay, look, there is a lot more shadow information in the ray tracing part of the game, still maintaining 60 FPS. There is a lot of look at here, for example, on this plan in this area, and you see how it loses the self shadowing, the ambient occlusion. Look at the plants, we're losing this part of that. You can see that here, for example, you see we're losing that beautiful shadow that helps and makes the game more realistic, more cemented into the game, more like a Pixar movie, because well, we cannot activate ray tracing in the native one, otherwise we will lose performance. So this is another reason why normally using DLSS is a better trade-off, even if you consider that maybe it's not good enough, because I don't know, you say that you can see the difference, but I think the trade-off is worth it, in the sense that if you lose a little bit of clarity, which I don't think so, but if you think it does, at least you're gaining on visual fidelity and keeping the same performance. And that's why I think not using DLSS from the title of the video is a little bit dumb, and to be honest. Now, this is another interesting game. In this case, I wanted to achieve 60 FPS native with Final Fantasy XVI, right? And for that, I had to go as low as 900p on the native side of the image. Yes, I'm playing at 1600 by 900 and on low settings. And as you can see here, the performance on the native side is a little bit better, like by 3 or 4 frames compared to the DLSS version that I choose to portray here. However, the DLSS version is running at 1440p performance medium settings. Okay, so we are gaining image, we are improving things, and still having similar levels of performance as 900p native. Okay, and if you want to see how stark the difference is, look at this. This is Final Fantasy XVI running on low and 900p native, and this is 1440p performance. Look at this. So much lightning, vegetation, it's so transformative that I don't know why anyone would prefer to play native at 60 FPS than with DLSS performance, even if you consider that DLSS doesn't look as good. So we go as close as this just to give you an example. Look at this. This is DLSS performance 1440p, and when we go here, look at this and look at how terrible it looks at 900p native. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. It may be me, but if I had to choose, I would choose the 1440p performance any day before going 900p, because I wouldn't go that low just to play a 60 FPS. And the other part of the story is, yeah, this one, look, I'm losing all the vegetation, all the extra details and everything, just because I want to play native, which some people say it looks better. I don't know how they can say it looks better in any way or form, because certainly in terms of resolution, image clarity is not true, but it's not true in those terms. It's also true that I can improve the game settings by using DLSS, which at the end of the day will make my game look even better. Okay, so finally, the last comparison I'm going to be doing is on Horizon Forbidden West. And in this case, on the left side, I'm using native with TAA, so we can, avoid the problems we were having on Ratchet and Clank and just give you a different perspective. And on the right side, we're using the DLSS balance once again. And as you can see, there is a very stark difference. This game doesn't have ray tracing, and we can achieve 60 FPS not using the DLSS at 1440p, but using the low settings, which obviously looks terrible. I think I could have probably upped the texture resolution and not have affected the performance, but since I'm using presets to get to the point I want to, I didn't want to mess with them. Medium settings was not enough on native resolution to get to 60 FPS. It will take me to like 44 to 55, but it will never hit 60 FPS, at least in the area I was testing. So on this case here, you can see clearly, okay, how different the game looks if you want to play with DLSS without DLSS and just play native, because you are losing so much image quality. Look at this, how different they look, because it's not just the difference in terms of textures, it's also the modeling, and the geometry becomes very, very simple compared to the full version of the games. Shadows, backgrounds, everything gets a complete overhaul. And we can see this better if we go here. Look at this. You see, it's not just that the texture is a lot of lower quality, but the geometry is also very low quality. Look at the rocks, how they lose a lot of detail. Look at the plants, how they have, now they're not as full as before of leaf, and everything becomes a lot more simplistic, and it's a complete different game from my point of view. Even though we are not a very high, maybe using DLSS or a performance, I will have been able to get to very high, but I didn't want to go as low because I know many people say, oh, it looks bad or so on. So my question is, and is it better to play at native even if it's going to cost you so much visual quality? So, well, as you saw, in many games, so in some cases, you have to sacrifice a lot of resolution and quality in order to get 60 FPS on native resolution. And I don't think it's worth it from my point of view to go so low to just get that native because you don't like DLSS. Let's say for a second, as I said, I don't agree with this, but let's say for a second that you are right and DLSS looks fuzzy or doesn't look as clear as native and so on. Okay, I'll give you that. But the question is that trade-off worth it? I mean, is it better to play at native but a lower quality? Because in games like Black Myth Wukong, for example, I think the difference is stark. I would prefer any day of the day to play a medium settings that are low, even if I have to play with DLSS. The same on a game like Horizon Forbidden West, or even Ratchet and Clank, that the difference was very small. But on Final Fantasy XVI, you saw we had to go to 900p, we had to go to low. Well, I was able to achieve sort of the same performance on 1440p medium. So yeah, I don't know if it's something I will trade off, honestly. Even if it looks a little bit fuzzy or worse, the gains I'm getting in terms of how much I can improve the quality of the game by setting higher settings, honestly, I think is better than just the loss of clarity, maybe, if that's what you consider that you're losing, because I honestly don't think it's worth it, especially because if you're using a 1440p monitor, like in this case, if you say, well, I prefer to lower to 1080p native, it makes absolutely no sense, because it's not native. The moment you're playing a different resolution than your monitor, it stops being native, and the image may be 1080p native in the game, but still the monitor has to upscale to the 1440p, which makes you lose clarity anyway. And if you're playing on a 1080p monitor, you can still, you are still adapting. So if you use DLSS even on quality, you could up the game quality. So it's always a trade-off, no matter what resolution or monitor you are using at the end of the day. So from my point of view, honestly, I would not want to lose the better image quality that I get by improving the game settings than just by losing a little bit of maybe clarity or resolution by using DLSS. So that's my opinion on this. I don't know what you think, but to be honest, I think not using DLSS, yes, it is a little bit dumb.